Well, good afternoon, good morning. How you doing? Your minds are full. The stimulation is happening. I would like to share with you a story of stories of life in the cloud. All right? May I start with a brief introduction of a good friend of mine called Eddie Doyle. Eddie, where are you, please? Stand up, Eddie. I'm going to need your help in a minute. Eddie's a friend and a mentor of mine. Eddie and I have been sitting and bantering for weeks about how we can give you, thank you, Eddie, you may sit, about how we can give you specific takeaways based on real world experience going into the cloud securely. I'm with Checkpoint 14 years, as Peter said, and I've been on the cloud team and the global strategy team for the last year. And we surveyed dozens of CISOs. And what I'm going to do first in part one of the story is do what I call, and can I ask the camera to come in tight on my hand right here? So, right here, brother, to come in tight. This is a $5 chip, which represents a story of 5 takeaways that I'm going to give you in 5 minutes. That's a lot, okay? Then I'm going to bring 2 special guests to the stage. And I'm going to tease you in a minute with what we're doing there. Good? Now, Eddie, come up here, please. Do I trust you? Can I test the trust model? Eddie, can you do this for me? Can you send 3 $5 chips from the front row and have them passed all the way to the back row? And Eddie, I want you to audit the results and make sure they make it all the way back there. Do you trust security in the cloud? Do you? No. Why not? Right? You're going to learn how we overcome it from 2 different real world perspectives. Let me first tell you 5 things that CISOs and CSOs have told us that have formed the strategy of something called VSEC. Have you heard of VSEC? Raise your hand. Have you not heard of VSEC? Raise your hand. By the way, did anybody tell you that in my presentations you will be overly asked? You will be asked too many questions and asked to participate. By the way, I'm totally embarrassed. Do you know why? Later I'm going to be totally embarrassed. I'm going to have to ask you for a very big favor. So store that up there. Here comes 5 in 5. Number 1, CISO said, we need the ability to go in and out of the Google Cloud, the Azure, the AWS, the VMware NSX and the private cloud, the Cisco ACI, the OpenStack. We need the ability to go in, experiment, maybe come back out. We need to be able to do that all with what? Equal security. That's point number 1. So when you're looking at cloud security, such as VSEC, you want to make sure that you can move those workloads in and out. Raise your hand if you're experimenting in cloud or about to experiment in cloud, don't exactly know what you're doing and need that freedom. With VSEC, you'll have it. Number 2, the ability to have a unified view of cloud security, the ability to observe threat prevention in real time, but not just in the cloud, in your data center. When I say hybrid cloud, do you know what I mean? Raise your hand. I know what hybrid cloud is. Raise your hand. I do not know what the hybrid cloud is. Hybrid cloud refers to traditional data center deployment that you have today and efforts to lift and shift and move into the cloud. What are the reasons we even care about cloud? There are primarily 2, and I'm going to set you up with a teaser. Here they are. Number 1, agility, the ability to go quicker, without a doubt. Number 2, elasticity. If the security solution doesn't respect, follow, and execute on those, the CISOs and CSOs told us, not valuable. Don't slow us down. Speed it up, okay? So how do we achieve all this? Number 3 is the ability to be completely integrated with these ecosystems. What does that mean? That means no additional typing and clicking and re-clicking and repasting and becoming replicating. It means an automated and an adaptive model. Let me put it in concrete terms for you, and I'll be quick. Number one, the ability from day zero to script and automatically build security. And on day one, the ability to already have it in place in the cloud. Anybody heard of A&O? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. A and O. Let me rephrase. Anybody heard of automation and orchestration? Anybody experimenting, okay? A&O is a cloud buzzword. Or automation and orchestration is where cloud is at. I'll never be elastic, and I'll never get the true agility I want in cloud if I don't have automation and the orchestration of all of it. Cloud security must respect and obey all that, such as VSEC. My favorite one is the following. Did you believe this morning when you got up that someone would get on stage and ask you if you had a pet? Raise your hand if you have a dog. Put your hand down. Raise your hand if you have a cat. Raise your hand if you have cattle. Anybody here a farmer and have cattle? Oh my God, you're getting a $5 chip. We got one. We got one. There's your chip. Pets and cattle is a very, very good analogy for an important piece of elasticity in the cloud that we call scaling. Let me explain it to you. When you have a pet, you love your pet. Your pet has a name. What do you do with your pet when your pet gets sick? That's right. Say it out loud. Take them to the vet, right? Nurse them back to health. What do we hope about the life of our pets? That it will be a long life, okay? Let's talk about cattle. Cattle, do they have names? No, what do they have? They have numbers. Best part coming up of the whole presentation. What happens when the cattle gets sick? You eat it, you shoot it. I only have 2 more minutes to tell you that in cloud, the most interesting kind of workloads are those that lend themselves to a grow and shrink like cattle. I kill off the cattle, I kill off the workload, and I grow it back out again. We look at the pets more like the databases of the world. They need a lot of care and feeding. But the more interesting workload are the ones that scale out and scale back. We're going to talk about scaling, and whatever cloud deployments you've got must also respect scaling, whether it's auto scaling or manual scaling. Security must follow it. You just got 5 takeaways in 5 minutes. The flexibility to go in and out of cloud with unified management for security. Threat prevention in real time, preemptive. By the way, I'm going to ask you to be preemptive with me in about 1 minute, and you're going to make fun of me afterwards. People are going to come up and say, I can't believe you did that. Number 2, the ability to see infrastructure in the cloud and have it automatically in my security policy. I don't have to retype, rekey, recopy, anything. A&O, automation and orchestration. And finally, the ability to have my cattle not only for scaling in workloads, but also the consumption of cloud. Raise your hand if you know what pay-as-you-go is. Raise your hand. Pay-as-you-go is a popular way to consume cloud and cloud security that says, I pay for what I use and I scale down. Here's a teaser. I'm going to bring a guest out in a minute who's going to educate you on true cloud consumption and dispel a myth that a lot of people have. Now, let's see if I can get this done right. Actually, in the interest of time, 80% of firms, 80% are looking at a public cloud deployment and have concerns about security, number one. 80%. 70% of new data center deployments are looking at a software-defined data center model where security is key, micro-segmentation and east-west. 38% are a DevOps shop. Raise your hand if you're a DevOps or have agility methodologies in your shop. Raise your hand if you have developers writing. Raise your hand if you have shadow IT in your shop. Raise your hand if you have no idea whether you have shadow IT or not and people using credit cards in the cloud. We'll talk about that with my second guest. Now comes the part that I'm ashamed and embarrassed about. Are you ready? Do I have your commitment? I did give out casino chips, so you will play along, I hope. Will you please stand up if you have concerns about moving securely into the cloud? Stand up, please. This is where you stand up. Yes, right now, you answer that question by standing up. This is where everybody stands up. Do not be sitting. Do you know why? This is what I'm embarrassed. Look at these people. Please stand. Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you, literally, to please stand. What happened? Well, our first guest is a gentleman named Mike Lambert. Mike is an amazing guy, VP and CISO of OpenLink. He's got 23 years in it, the New York Stock Exchange previously in a number of roles. He holds patents. He's an expert on many aspects of cloud. He's going to tell you what he did in cloud, but I promised him a standing ovation. Now, he's got headphones on. He can't hear all this. He can't hear it, I assure you. But when he comes out, will you act like you're just giving him a standing ovation and clap very loudly? Maybe cheer. Mike Lambert, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Welcome, Mike. Have a seat. How's Mike's microphone? How we doing there? Where can you hear Mike? No, we can't.
1, 2, 3.
And now we can.
Now we can.
So our goal of this is to give these people a real world view of what you did. Tell us about OpenLink. Tell us about how you went from traditional data center into the cloud and what drove it.
Absolutely. So OpenLink is the, excuse the voice, too much partying last night. Couldn't help it. OpenLink is the global leader in trading and risk management solutions for the energy industry, financial services, and also corporates. We traditionally sell our software and our products into the traditional data centers of our clients. For clients that are not that big or don't have very large IT shops, we also have a whole hosting business as well that we support. So within our data centers, we'll actually support it. Based on how our software operates and the things we do with it and with our clients, we saw a tremendous value, basically from what Brian was really talking about in the areas of scalability, the agility, okay, so the idea of being able to orchestrate, very, very important. And we feel that we can actually still provide a secure solution in the public cloud. And so far, conversations we've had with our clients, and we actually already have one product out there, a dev test product, that we actually have in the public cloud, resonates very strongly with them that we're able to do it in a proper fashion.
So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
I'm going to read their minds.
Yeah.
I hope I can do this successfully, having had so many meetings. We talk about agility. We talk about elasticity in the cloud. I think those are important to what you're doing, but one of the biggest confusion points is this notion of cost savings, both in cloud and cloud security. Are you saving money by going into the cloud? What are the use cases that these people can leverage in real world to actually achieve it, or is it a myth?
It's not a myth, but it does have to be engineered. If you think you're going to basically do a lift and shift to your data center and stick it in the cloud, you'll end up spending a lot more. That's not the right approach. There are certain workloads that make sense. And I'll give you two quick examples. Our product basically is fairly complex, and our clients will typically build development and test environments in order to test out new releases, changes, and whatnot. They'll spend a lot of money from a CapEx perspective on building those environments that are not really used all the time. All right? We feel that there's a very strong need to bring that into the public cloud. We can spin them up very quickly and then spin them down. So they're only paying for when they're used. Now, on the production side, and we haven't offered it yet, we're in the process of right now, when you build out an environment, once again, our system uses a lot of processing capacity to do it, so lots of systems that it runs on. If during the day, most of the time, maybe they're running at 20% load. Certain times of the day, during certain calculations, they'll spin up and they'll be up at a much higher level. Well, when you move to the cloud, we can actually, using the elasticity, they only pay and buy for the nominal, okay? And then during the day when they scale, we auto-scale up to provide them the capacity, and then it becomes a pay-as-you-go for that capacity, and then it goes away.
And that needs to apply to security as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so we haven't gotten to that yet.
Let's talk a little bit about security in the cloud. I think that from our research and our meetings, we have seen that these people, their chief reservation among many is going into the public cloud securely. You face that same challenge.
Absolutely.
How did not just Checkpoint, but another partner, Guardicore, help address that? Tell us a little about it.
So let's talk about, so we are going into Azure. That's where we are right now. Now, you've heard people from yesterday. They have lots of certifications and everything. We actually believe that they have a really good, secure infrastructure. But as a CISO, I don't trust anybody or anything. All right, so on top of whatever they're doing, I'm going to actually have to bring additional products. And there's a very large ecosystem of partners. And we've chosen Checkpoint and another product called Guardicore, and I'll just talk a little bit about. So the atomic networking piece, if you would be the VNet. Okay, they will lock it down. Azure does a very good job. We put Checkpoint on top of that, so the whole threat protection model on top of that for each client that we bring into the cloud. And that provides us a good perimeter control. It also allows us, very importantly, to validate the controls that Azure is actually providing. So not only are we adding and enhancing the security and building a really solid security stack, but we're also able to verify those lower layers that are being provided to us by the provider, by Azure. And now in addition, talk about Guardicore. Hey, Guardicore, we actually, ironically, we saw them and actually vetted them based on CPX last year here at the conference. So it was very good that they were here. What they are is they're an agent-based product that sits on all of our VMs, regardless of whether they're temporary or permanent workloads. And it allows us to enumerate all processes and flows in and out of every one of those VMs. So if you're in an environment, you have a quick way of actually seeing your overall environment, and they graphically provide it. But where the real value is really twofold. One, it allows us to baseline, because our application is deterministic, baseline what that configuration is. And then if you were to implement things like microsegmentation, okay, where you want to drive everything through the firewall, it actually works with the APIs of Checkpoint, and you can literally move or export everything in Guardicore into it, and it'll automatically create all the rules within the firewall. Okay, which to me is probably the biggest issue of human error, is creating the rules. Now it's done automatically based on the layer. And you can go even further, is at Guardicore will actually allow us to, at the east-west perspective, alert on anything that's, that doesn't fall into that baseline. So it's very important for us.
The ecosystem, two solutions, VSEC, Guardicore, we have a guiding principle of shared responsibility in the cloud. How many people are familiar with something called shared responsibility for security in the cloud? How many people are not familiar with it? They don't know what that is. Good. Explain to them. We've had this conversation many, many times. Explain to them what that means and where the cloud stops for security and where we start. Well,
Azure, that's where I am right now. Basically, they own the lower layers of the stack. Okay, so effectively, they'll protect against the overall environment. But as I like to look at it, they're also providing you a length of rope and enough so to hang yourself on. Okay, so at the end of the day, you can configure, you can change, you can add permissions that could really cause you a lot of issues. So the shared responsibility really comes into the fact that we still have a responsibility when we build our applications and build our systems into the cloud to properly secure them on top of what the provider is providing. All right, and in fact, and I like to focus on compliance. I'm much more focused on security, and you heard that this morning. The idea is that you can still build your security plan on top of what the provider is providing. And once again, Checkpoint Azure and Guardicore are key to making it work for us.
So, information overload. Yes, you're about the point in the conference, right? You're feeling it? Give them 2 or 3 takeaways. Talk about, I know we've talked about paradigms changing. Yeah. Give them a couple takeaways they can go with.
So the biggest thing, and we've been in it for over a year, and you think you're walking in, and it is, once again, it's a totally different paradigm. And if you were a top-notch network or security engineer, throw away everything that you ever learned. Okay, when you go into the public cloud.
Really? Completely throw it away?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, because there is no longer a network. Okay, it's software. Okay, that's what you can touch. And you can't touch all of it. You can touch pieces of it. So, and I like the best analogy is you get a guy, and this is the picture, a guy with a sniffer standing in the middle of a data center saying, where do I plug it in? There is no place to plug it in. So how you diagnose problems, totally different. And one of the most important things that we learned is you need to be able to partner with organizations, okay, so Checkpoint is part of the ecosystem, okay, and Guardicore, who have a very deep bench of understanding of the cloud and partnerships with the underlying providers, so the Azures, the AWSs, the Googles, okay. By having that, when a problem crops up, it's invaluable because you're going to need everybody on deck to deal with even the simplest problem because you don't have the level of visibility that you had with a traditional network.
Mike, I'm not going to make them stand up, but may I say thank you very much for joining us. Will you give him at least a round of applause? You're awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. That's a day in the life of cloud as told by someone who is maybe a little ahead of you, maybe not, but a little ahead of a lot of firms in the cloud. Quick and dirty, we're going to move right through this. Next guest, I am going to have to ask you for another favor because we can't give one standing ovation but not another. Do you agree? The eyes are rolling. Rise up. Come on, rise up. Get the blood pumping. Adam Massey from the Google Cloud Platform. Don't clap. Okay, you can clap. Yes. Adam. Welcome.
Hey, Brian.
Welcome. Have a seat. I'll tell them about you. Now, Adam, you've got today you've got responsibility for all the strategic technology alliances for all of the Google Cloud strategy around the world, Google Apps, Chrome, the G Suite, and also, most interestingly probably, this group is the Google Cloud platform.
That's right.
What is great about Google Cloud? You guys are making big investments. Tell them what's great about the Google Cloud. Let's start with that.
Yeah, so we think there's a lot of things that sets Google Cloud Platform apart. But if you guys aren't super familiar with us, we really kind of think about a couple takeaways to leave you with would be one, we really like to think of ourselves as the innovation leader. So continuous innovation, building future-proof infrastructure. And if you think, like, what does future-proof infrastructure really mean? It's about really meeting customers where they are today, which is largely infrastructure as a service, software architectures that kind of look like they do in your own data centers but in the cloud, while also innovating for the future and really driving forward things like machine learning, advanced analytics, serverless software architecture. And it's actually interesting. Do you guys know when we started building our cloud?
How long ago? Tell us. Do you know? What's that?
Yes.
Look at that.
98.
Wait, who said it? Who said it? Can you Eddie, get a chip to that gentleman here?
So in 1998, when we first launched our Google.com search engine, that was really, if you think back, that's probably a great example of one of the earlier scaled SaaS applications. And keeping multiple copies of the entire internet indexed, later adding things like Gmail and YouTube and the Android mobile platform, created a lot of scale infrastructure challenges for us that there just simply weren't solutions on the market for. So it started driving us to innovate on what servers and disks need to look like in that model, what kind of databases we require, what does the network need to look like? And it emerged into what we have today, which is a cloud that we offer to the world and to our customers, including one of the most advanced networks with over 100 POPs, 7 different regions, 20 different zones. And not only all those great services, actually 7+ of which have over 1 billion users each running on it.
How many?
7+ services, each with 1 billion users on it.
Oh my God.
That runs on that infrastructure, but also great enterprise customers like Conrad, who you'll hear more about today, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Motorola, and others. And
let me ask you this question. These people, I think most people entering the cloud, how are they entering? What are the kinds of workloads you're seeing them bring in first?
Yeah. I mean, I think for most enterprises, right, the entry point is, like I mentioned before, it doesn't look all that different than what you're running in your own company or data center. It's starting with infrastructure as a service, VM clusters usually is a starting point, and then that grows and you start to layer on different innovations and ways to auto-scale and replicate and protect. So I think the starting point is there, and a lot of the drivers behind that, which we pride ourselves on, are price and performance. You might think cloud is cheaper than doing it yourself. You might disagree with me, but we definitely are the cheapest cloud out there with prices roughly 30 to 50% lower than our other competitor clouds, but also a lot of things to help ease that transition for enterprises. Like we've got a free migration service. Whether you're migrating 1 VM or 1 million VMs, it's free. We've also got a free a free perpetual price tier for some of our services as well. So we're trying to make that transition as frictionless as possible.
But what they're worried about is security in the cloud and shared responsibility, which I know that Google also subscribes to. Can you talk a little bit about Google's position on giant networks securing the cloud versus how customers need to secure their own workloads?
Well, I'm not going to get into the whole argument around whether the cloud's more secure or less. I have an opinion on that. But we also know that shared responsibility is really important, because the way customers are using clouds today is you're building software and you're writing applications, you're running workloads on this platform. So for us, security has been a core part of our DNA from our inception as a company. We have a huge security team. It's part of our software development process. Every new employee goes through pretty deep security training. So it's a big part of what we do. And so we try to innovate a lot on the platform, right? On the infrastructure services, the network, make it the most secure platform you could run on. But the shared responsibility piece comes in when you start thinking about bringing your data to that platform and writing and building new applications on that platform. And for us, in addition to driving a lot of innovation on platform level security, we double down on our ecosystem, and that's my job. So my job running this Technology Alliances organization is to ensure that our partners like Checkpoint and what we're doing with VSEC is an extension of our own platform that enables you as the customer who might have, and probably everybody has their feet in multiple worlds, on-prem, in the cloud, increasingly in multiple clouds, ensuring you've got a tried and true enterprise class solution to manage your security across all those different planes.
Why don't we tell them about Conrad? Conrad's an interesting joint use case for us. Why don't you talk about what Conrad Electronics is and what they're doing, and then maybe I can entertain a little bit about what they're doing with security.
Sure. So if you're not familiar with Conrad Electronics, they are a German electronics retailer. and they primarily sell, a mix of consumer and specialized electronics. Now, they're a great customer of Google. So I think about a year ago, they moved off of Lotus Notes and off of Microsoft Office to G Suite, so we're thrilled about that. They've also started moving their e-commerce presence and site over to Google Cloud Platform and going to run that there. And there's a bunch of exciting innovations they're doing, like running it on container-based architecture and other things. But I think one of the cool things that we sort of share use case around is this really innovative IoT platform they're building. So Conrad is building this IoT, this data aggregation solution called Conrad Connect. And the idea is they sell, electronics devices. And so they're building an IoT platform that will enable their customers to connect all these different devices and also do a bunch of interesting things with them, like connect to Google Assistant and the Google Home product for voice interaction and other things. But they're also a Checkpoint VSAC customer, aren't they, Brian?
Yeah, let me tell you about the use case. Can you imagine for a minute, we're familiar generally with DevOps. Raise your hand, raise your hand. What do you know about DevOps? Well, let me tell you about DevOps. One, it's developers. What do developers care about security? Okay, not much. Why? Their primary charge is developing and being agile, getting there quicker. So what Conrad did was have multiple teams of DevOps teams that are developing as part of this IoT or e-commerce app, and they're developing and releasing very, very quickly. Using the Google Cloud Platform's XPN feature, which is a cross-project, we gave each DevOps team its own area separated, but VSEC secured all of the access in a separate project so that all the DevOps units were passing through this, but the responsibility for managing security in that security VSEC area was all separate. So we weren't counting on the DevOps guys to secure it, okay? So it's a really innovative way that both Google Cloud and VSEC combined to provide a highly, highly agile environment, yet also mandate security. So a really interesting use case. We're running out of time. I just wanted to ask you to recap.
Sure.
What are the 3 takeaways in the information overload that you want to leave with these people?
So Friday in Vegas after a conference, thank you so much for having me here and hearing me out. 3 takeaways I'd love to leave you with is, one, just how committed to cloud and enterprise Google is. It's important to realize that this is a huge business of ours. It's one we're investing very deeply in. I think we've invested around $30 billion in CapEx infrastructure investment in data center build out and growing the teams over just the last 3 years, and we see that investment continuing to rise. The second thing is security for us isn't an afterthought. It's a core part of everything we do, from software design to staffing of our teams, even to data center design and build out. And we don't do that alone. We do that very, very closely with Checkpoint. VSEC's a core part of our cloud security strategy, and this is a partnership we're really excited about and how it can apply and help you all transition to the cloud. And then I think the last thing I'd love to leave you with is this concept of we are the open cloud. And what does open mean? Why is that important?
How does it benefit them?
Open is really important if you're a customer, because if you look at open source projects like Linux and other things, open drives rapid innovation. And that's ultimately the benefit of cloud for all of you, right? Is being able to benefit from companies like Google and Amazon and Microsoft and others to rapidly innovate so you can leverage the value that comes out of that. And whether it's our open sourcing of Beyond Corp or TensorFlow, our machine learning open source project, there's a number of others. This is a big thing that we're focused on, and it's going to enable us to be your innovation partner.
Adam, thanks for your time. They
Thank you,
appreciate
Brian.
it.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you,
See ya.
everybody.
Was it valuable? Did you get something out of it? The 17 minutes, all right? I'm all good to go. Peter, I'm good to go, and I cede the floor. Thank you very much for your time.